You're listening to Journaling with PT. I am your host, artist PT Russell. Welcome back if you've been listening, and happy holidays to everyone. I want you to stay tuned to an episode that hopefully will motivate, inspire, and encourage you. Please stay tuned for my next guest, life coach Marking. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have a very special guest who is just oozing with positive energy. He's a beautiful person. We've been friends for a while, but I think we've finally crossed the threshold into the familial bond area.
Yes.
And so we're beyond friendship now. And I'm speaking of Coach Marking. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Oh my God, this is so awesome to be able to, like you said, we've known each other for so long, but this reconnection has been, it's been magical. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and I'm just blessed to have you in my life. And that conversation we had, I can tell you that it was refreshing.
Yes.
And invigorating, and it touched my soul and spirit. What can I say about that? You're just that type of person. You have that kind of personality, and so for you to be a life coach, an impact coach, it's no stretch of the imagination, because this is naturally who you are. And can you just give us a little jump start into your artistic journey and how that started?
My artistic journey, yeah. So, well, started to plant the seeds when we were working together at Club Fortuna, doing those shows at night for the guests, and that really started to pique my interest in exploring my creative side. And then when I moved to San Francisco, I got involved with a Filipino American theater company, and went into a deep dive into exploration of my creativity, and then also finding out more about who I was in the sense of being Filipino and Filipino American in the United States, and through art. And we started doing sketch comedy, and we were talking about social commentary and the diaspora of what it meant to be Filipino in the United States. And man, ever since then, it was a deep dive into that and creating a space for our art. And that was a 10-year process of doing sketch comedy, directing, producing, creating spaces for other artists to explore their art. And during that time, I also got to do a little bit of acting in front of the camera. And
what was that like?
Wow. Well, it's crazy. It was during a time when Asians were not really there wasn't a lot of Asians on the silver screen or on TV. So a lot of the roles that I did end up taking were a lot of roles that were your stereotypes, like Asian gang member number 1 or Chinese delivery guy number 2.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was really hard during those times, and I started to lose interest in pursuing Hollywood. I had moved down to Hollywood to see if I could try to do something down in LA, but it was very challenging, and then it became more about surviving and finding work, because let me just say, living I'm sure you could relate to this to a certain degree, that the artist life, the struggle is real. The hustle is real.
It's an understatement. Absolutely, yes. It's something. But did you enjoy the experience, getting to act and behind the camera, and with the directing? How did that feel, being able to express your artistic self a little
You
bit
know,
more?
it's I had a great time, especially when I was doing theater in San Francisco with the company that I ended up helping to co-found and was a artistic director. It's called Bindlestiff Studio, and that has been around since '85, about '87. But when we got there was in '96, '97, and just being able to provide uh, a perspective for other Filipinos to take a look at and be able to
Mm.
laugh at themselves, be able to have critical thinking, provide that critical thinking, um, having the audience members come up to us and say, "Wow, I've never seen anything like this.
Wow.
It's so impactful. It's so needed in our community. Thank you." Like that to me was is definitely one of the highlights in my career as far as being an artist is concerned.
Wow. And you also play an instrument, don't you? Or two?
I do dabble. I
Dabble is how you put it.
I yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've played guitar. I mean, I've always played guitar. I play a little bit of a ukulele, and then I played bass in a band for a minute, and I've been exposed to musicians, and then there's me.
Oh man, don't do that to yourself.
Well, it's just, I mean, I do consider myself a musician, but there are so many well-seasoned
Hmm.
musicians out there that when I see them perform and will see when they're in the pocket and they're just lost in their moment, it's pretty awesome to witness. I get to do that every once in a while, but my skill set, I'm a musician, but it's not one of my creative outlets that I lead with. I'll just say that I'm more
Okay,
of
that's
a
fair.
yeah. My artistry has evolved into my coaching.
Right. Beautiful. That is beautiful. But you're a pretty good dancer too, I must say.
Oh,
I remember the merengue. You're pretty good, a fast learner.
I was yeah. Well, I mean, there were great teachers too. Antonella and Jackie; those guys were they were all about it. So I had great teachers, and it was
Mhm.
fun. It was fun. It was easy to really let loose and express myself in the ways I could in dancing. I always love dancing. It's a great way to just be in touch with your body and let
Mhm.
loose and be able to express in the ways you want to when you're dancing.
Yeah, it's great. Now about the directing, what precisely were you directing? Like short films or TV commercials?
Um, Directing, I was doing more theater directing.
Okay,
I did do a couple of short films and helped out with a feature film more on the independent scene.
awesome.
Uh, my journey into directing actually was sparked by because initially I was pursuing more of from the perspective of an actor, and
Hmm.
when I decided to do pursue assistant directing and directing, it was with the intention of being able to understand what goes through the mind of an assistant director and a director, so that it would inform my performances as an actor, so I could get a better understanding what it is the director was looking for, and how to and get familiar with the language that they were using in order
Hmm.
to get from point A to point B in a scene with more effectiveness and efficiency. But then what I started to realize is that I really enjoyed the directing process.
Wow. Will you revisit it in the future, perhaps?
Yeah, actually, I did. I did do a couple of pieces this last year. Got back more into directing, um, but I feel like, and there is intentions of being more involved in directing in future projects.
Mhm.
And what's feeding my soul, what makes my soul smile is, which is something I share with my clients is for them to pursue, is do what makes your soul smile. Is that when I'm coaching, it's
Mhm.
very much like directing. The way I position it with my clients is that I am helping you out with the character development of your life, and the direction that I give in my coaching practice is very similar. The
Right.
process is very similar with working with an actor, because you're taking them from point A to point B and really understanding who they are as a character, and giving exercises and assignments that help to flush out that character even more, so that they become more authentic as that character, and it becomes more believable for them. And that process is very much parallel to my coaching practice as well.
There you go. I mean, the creativity continues to bloom.
Oh yeah, and I've seen the power of art. Art
Mhm.
is is so powerful, because again, it does allow us as creatives to be in full expression. And when artists are in full expression, wow,
Mhm.
magic just happens. It just happens, and it has the ability to impact other people and change lives. And the power of art is truly amazing to me.
Yeah, yes, it absolutely is. And I mean, I looked at your YouTube channel for the artistry in life,
Hmm.
and just the videos. I mean, just listening to the videos is like very ASMR. It's very soothing. Anyone who's listening, you have to check out his YouTube channel, please.
Right on.
I was just, the production. Were you involved in the production of your videos?
I helped out a little bit with that for sure.
Hmm.
But I definitely had I have some folks that have helped me out with that, and
Hmm.
I can't I wouldn't have been able to put out the content without their help. I think that's one of the things that we all get to realize, is that you can't do it on your own. You can't do it all
Right.
on your own. You can, but you come across resistance, and
Hmm.
it can prolong the situation. But always be open to asking for help, and getting the help that you need, because sometimes they come up with things that you never would think about. And I think that was part of the magic in what we were doing, is collaborating together and being able to find different ways to create content, get the message out there. It's not a perfect machine yet, but
Hmm.
we keep plugging at it and try to remain consistent as we can, um, and just put out the content out there with the intention of at least providing
Hmm.
perspective for folks to consider for their lives.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful to have that outlet for me. It was just therapy for me, just watching the videos, to be honest, especially the little clips and the ones with the quotes with Theodore Roosevelt.
Hmm.
Just very touching. Uh, just you had a lot of there was a lot of yourself
Hmm.
for me implanted
Hmm.
in these videos. I could sense your desire to really reach out to other people and to really help them. And you can see that it's something you're seriously passionate about. There's no mistake when you listen to these videos or you're watching the videos, that you would see that this is definitely a passion of yours. And what was the impetus? Why coaching specifically?
Well, um, that's a great question. In my own process as an artist, as a creative, and an activist, it was, although there were many high points, there was definitely a lot of low points when you're trying to create and be collaborative with a group of people. Um, there's a, there's potential for emotions to be very raw. As
Hmm.
artists and creatives, we're very aware of our emotions, but a lot of times we don't necessarily know what to do with them.
Hmm.
And um and through that process, like, I had experienced some depression, because there were heads that were just constantly butting up against each other, and uh that depression got very dark. I had stopped creating for a moment, and just life started to happen and start crashing in all at once. And I went down this rabbit hole of deep, dark depression. And I started to realize for myself, if I didn't change my ways of being, it was going to get worse than it already was. I already had like
Mhm.
suicide ideations. I started
Oh,
thinking,
wow.
questioning my existence, and I knew that things had to change, because you know that was not going to be an option for me. And I started to pursue my own personal development and started to slowly climb my way out of that depression. But then it just wasn't enough. And the climbing out took a couple of years, and then I started to maintain, but there was still something that was missing. So it
Mhm.
caused me to go deeper into personal development, taking more workshops, more trainings, and then actually led to getting coaching for myself. And then when I started to receive coaching for myself, ooh, that was a whole nother world, like that
Mm.
I had not really been aware about.
Mm.
And when I started to receive the tools and understand that there were different modalities and how you could move through life, it was such an aha moment for me. It was like, oh my God, everybody needs to have this. And that's when I started to really dive deep into coaching and started researching more of the tools and started to develop my own system and how to navigate through life with a lot more ease, flow, and grace. And that's how artistry in life started to come into existence for me. Is really being able to provide the tools and the framework and a practice and test it out on people and see their own transformations.
Mhm.
And that was like a drug for me as well. It's like, oh my goodness, like this is this is so important. It's being proven in front of my eyes right now. And then when I start to think about those transformations that we experience going through that practice, I
Yeah.
started thinking, wow, artists and creatives and activists really really deserve an opportunity to have these tools at their access so that they can just get out of their way or get unstuck, and so that they can get their art out there
Mhm.
with full expression, with more authenticity, so that they really can create the impact that they're meant to.
Wow. Well said, and we're happy that you're here with us in the land of the living. It's so important. There, life goes on, and I'm happy that you had that. You know, you did that extreme pivot for your life, because we need you. And what would you say? How would you explain or describe your coaching philosophy?
Well, part of what my belief is, is that I believe that the success and failure of any relationship is based on how well we're able to communicate with each other.
Hmm.
More importantly, how well we're able to communicate with self. And when we have healthy self talk practices, then we can start to develop a healthier relationship with self. And if we have a healthier relationship with self, then we can start to have healthier relationships with others. And the reason why I focus with artists, creatives, and activists is that as artists and creatives, we are the expressions of humanity. We talk about what what provides us happiness, what provides us joy, what makes us sad, what makes us angry. We talk about what's
Hmm.
right and wrong in the world. And if our voices are loud enough, then as activists, what we're able to do is act upon those expressions. We create change, we create policy, we create laws. And when we're
Hmm.
able to do that, then we're able to create impact. The other component of that is that through this practice, you start to realize the gift that you truly are as an
Wow.
artist, as a creative, and as an activist. And when you start to realize the gift that you truly are, then you can start to create change in the worlds around you. And if we're all
Hmm.
collectively doing that, then that's how we get to create impact in the world. And again, I understand the power of art, and if we're all doing that, for me. that's the most effective and efficient way in being able to create the change that we want in the world. Very much, that's Gandhi, right? Be the change that you want in the world.
Yes.
And right now, with what's happening in the world, the top it's we can't expect the change from the top. It has to come from the masses. It has to come from the people who have the skill set to express what it is that we're feeling. And as artists, creatives, and activists, that's where I feel that I can be more powerful, more impactful.
Believe you can, and you're halfway there, by
Yes.
Theodore Roosevelt. What
Hmm.
does that quote mean to you?
You know, um, part of our journey in really realizing what we want in our lives is creating that belief.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you say the things that you want, it's hard to believe, but you just keep saying. It's like with affirmations, you just keep saying it and keep saying it until you start to believe it, when your body starts to resonate with that. And when
Mm-hmm.
you start to when your body, when your soul starts to resonate with that belief, then it becomes easier to attain any kind of goals that you have, any what your mission statement is, what your North Star is. One of the things that I share with my clients is like, you got to say it until you believe it. That is something that we're told all the time. Just say it until you believe it. The other component of that I share with my clients is that, ask yourself the question, what if this is the price of admission to achieve your greatness? Is just to repeat it over and over until you believe it, until your body believes it. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at it from that perspective of like, oh my goodness, you mean that's all I got to do? That's my price of admission to start to achieve the things that I want to achieve. It gives you a little bit of, it gives a different perspective on that, and more intentionality in just going through the process of saying what it is that you want in your life, or the I am statement. I am fill in the blank. One of the most powerful phrases will ever say in your life is I am whatever. I am happy. I am sad. Like, both both are extreme statements, but
Mm-hmm.
if you start to believe those things, they both will come true.
Yeah, that's a mouthful right there.
Right.
And how important do you think it is for a person, an individual, a creative, whomever they are, to elevate their internal dialogue?
So important. It's so
Mm-hmm.
important because who we are as people is that we're energetic people. um One of the things that I walk my clients through is really introducing them to the concept of energy. Have When you go into a room, sometimes you have you ever been in a situation where you walk into a room and then all of a sudden the energy kind of shifts, or you feel something like, oh wow, somebody was talking about me, right?
Yeah.
You
Mm-hmm.
feel that. It might not be said, but you feel that energy. It's because we're energetic beings, and we have that energetic exchange. The other way I illustrate that as well is, you've done some writing, right? You
Yes.
Whether it's writing a letter or writing a poem, writing a script.
Mm-hmm.
um when you
Poetry.
write
Mm-hmm.
poetry, exactly. So when you write, are the words that you use, are they important to you?
Absolutely.
Right? Is the tonality of how you construct those words into a sentence, is that important to you?
Very important.
It's very important. The reason why these are important is because you're trying to either elicit an emotion or express an emotion so that your message can be more authentically felt, right? This is an exchange that you have with
Mm-hmm.
whoever's reading that, or whoever's hearing your poetry or your poem.
Mm-hmm.
That's the energetic exchange. How is that any different from our inner dialogue? The
Very
words that
true.
we use starts, when you look at it from that perspective, then the words that we use gets to be intentional. If we're using language that's self-deprecating, then guess what kind of energy that you're going to be circulating in your ways of being? It's going to be a negative energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you start using words that edify who you are, or start using words that help you create a new belief about yourself, that you are worthy of, that you matter, that your voice matters, your art matters. When you start circulating that type of energy, then that's when you start to create some shift and momentum in your ways of being. It's so important to keep that in mind about how you talk about yourself, how you talk about others, how you talk about events, anything that you think, say, or do. You get to really be intentional about how you're speaking about those things.
Oh, wow. Thank you for the reminder, because
Mm,
sometimes you do tend to, the negative thoughts, the feelings, you kind of externalize and you say things and you don't necessarily mean them, but they're coming from a place of, like, you're being truthful, and is
mm-hmm.
there sincerity, but yeah, you don't want to feed the atmosphere around you with something that's already there. You want to change the atmosphere. I love that.
I mean, this is to paint another picture of that, and politics is a thing, but you see, like, in politics, the negative energy, the fear mongering that takes place, like, that's what people spew out, and that's the energy that they create, and now the world is, that's what they feed upon, is just like that negative energy. And you see the world right now, it's just busting at its seams because there's just a lot of negative energy that's taking place, that's going around. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very unfortunate situation, but the one thing that is great about that is that if you understand that we are creating that negative energy, then the adverse of that is true as well. What if everybody starts talking about inspirational things, or how they've affected somebody, or how someone has transformed and changed somebody else's life, and start creating that positive energy? That has if that When that creates momentum, then who knows, maybe the world changes.
Wow. Is this a snapshot into your one of your coaching sessions? Can we honestly say that it is, because it's just really so soothing and refreshing to hear, just the way you're wording things, and in your voice is very soothing to begin with. So it's been pretty nice for me
Oh, thank you.
to
No,
take this
thank you
all
for
in.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, what
For
is a typical session like?
Well, for a typical session really is well, when people work with me, it's for 3 months, and the first month is an introduction to the tools. I provide a framework, the Artistry in Life methodology, and then provide them a practice. And the second month is really about uh, building on that foundation and creating that practice. And then the third month is an integration of that practice into your daily life. And it's really providing folks with a clear mission statement and North Star for them to really have a focus on a direction that they want to go. And then I help them get mentally, emotionally, and energetically aligned with that mission statement. And then
Mhm.
with the Artistry in Life framework, it gives you a framework of how to understand what the voices are in our head, the source of those voices. And when you understand the source of where those voices are coming from, the inner dialogue, that where that's coming from,
Mhm.
then you're able to make a more impactful choice in how you are moving in the world. The choices that you make, everything that you think, say, or do has to be in alignment with your mission statement and North Star. And then it's about providing, that's the foundation to creating that practice. And it's it's about giving exercises and opportunities where they're able to practice using those tools in the framework. And then it just becomes like batting practice. It's like, okay, you get the mechanics down of how you hold the bat, how you position your arms and your body, and how to follow through using your whole body, and then just replicating that as 10,000 times. It's what is that saying? Get once you hit 10,000 hours or 10,000 hits, then you start to develop mastery, and that's part of what we do in our coaching sessions, is provide you the tools and the framework, and then get you those 10,000 hours, those 10,000 punches, so that it becomes habitual for you. And then when you're able to do that, wow, just life just becomes a lot more fluid, a lot more
Mhm.
grace, a lot less judgment, a lot more freedom to just express and be who you truly are, the gift that you truly are in the world.
And where can folks find you, by the way?
They can find me. Thank you for that. They can find me on at artistryinlife.com. I'm also on YouTube. You can search artistry underscore life, artistry underscore in underscore life. You can find me on YouTube, and then uh, Instagram is my primary communication tool in reaching everybody, and that is also at Artistry in Life on Instagram.
And no worries if you didn't catch it this time, it will be
Hmm.
in the show notes for sure.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Uh, would you mind sharing a little bit about, because you are Filipino American,
Hmm.
a little bit about the community and what you're doing as an advocate and an activist?
Sure. It's interesting. When I was doing theater in the, I guess it was mid late '90s, early 2000s, there was a Filipino and Asian American, and then more specifically Filipino American renaissance of art and creatives that was taking place, and it peaked and then it's lulled. And I
Mm,
feel like in the past couple of years, there's that new renaissance for Filipino and Filipino artists that's starting to emerge. You're starting to see a lot more Filipinos on the screen, and they're not their typical roles. They're more lead roles. They may not be, or lead or supporting roles. They're not. They may not be A-listers yet, but the
mhm,
trajectory is heading in that direction. And it's not just in on the silver screen or on TV, but it's also just in community as well. There's a lot of
beautiful.
there's a lot of activity that's taking place in the Filipino community, at least in the LA area and in the San Francisco area, um, where I'm more accessible to those communities.
Hmm.
And I see what it is that they're doing in the education field, and in the community. And for me, being able to provide these tools so that they can be more effective and efficient in their process, uh, and delivering their message and delivering their truth, and being in full expression, that's where I
Hmm.
feel like I can contribute very, very strongly. Because I mean, I think about those times when I was doing theater and doing active arts work back in the day, and if I had the tools that I have now during then, I can only
Hmm.
imagine where we would be now. And that's a big part of what informs what my practice is today. And I do focus on artists, creatives, and activists, and I do focus on Filipinos and Filipino Americans. But this work is for everybody and everybody. It's
Yeah.
just so important for people to understand that there are tools out there for them to have access to. And one of
Yes.
the things I would share with people is, like, don't be afraid to seek therapy, or seek out a life coach that resonates for you, whether it's with me or somebody else. Get a
Right.
coach, get a therapist, because it's a very challenging time right now, and our mental and emotional well-being should be at the forefront. I'd gotten this quote from somebody,
Hmm.
and it was more on the physical aspects of in our bodies, but this applies to our mental and emotional well-being. But at some
Hmm.
point in our life, our health, whether it's mental or emotional, is going to be our primary concern. And when you think about that, do you want it to be on the back end when something has already happened, or do you want it to be in the front end, where you actually have the faculty and the mindset to, or the intention of really creating change for yourself before you start going down this deep rabbit hole of depression, you know, I don't know about you, but
Hmm.
in the communities that you're involved with, but I know it's been a hard year. I've had experience where a lot of people have passed on either through suicide or just because of poor health, because their mental and emotional well-being wasn't in place, that the stresses that they created for themselves, that energetic stress, that
Yeah.
inflammation becomes a physical inflammation, and that becomes, that can be anything from to eczema to high blood pressure to heart attack to cancer. And it's
Hmm.
it's something
That's
that is also something that really informs my practice, is that, you know, you start to get a better idea of how you can manage yourself mentally and emotionally, and start to create anti-inflammation practices for those
mhm.
that's going to prove to be very, very helpful for you in your physical ways of being. And to me, that's, it's just, you know, too many people gone too soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot of good stuff. A lot of wonderful nuggets in there. I should have been taking notes, but good thing I can replay this later.
Yes. Yes.
This has just been great, Mark King, and I just appreciate you taking the time to stop by. So, in closing,
Hmm.
I want to ask you, what is your favorite
Mm.
Bruce Lee film?
My favorite witch.
Bruce Lee film.
Oh, my favorite Bruce Lee film. Oh my gosh. You know that I all of them are really my favorite. Like well, I would guess I would have to say Enter the Dragon is one of
Okay.
my top favorites, but Bruce Lee is part of my practice, is based on his philosophy of,
Hmm.
um you know, take understanding all these different practices and learning from them, and taking the ones that really are applicable to you, that resonate with you, and creating a style in that. And that is in large part what artistry in life is. It For me, it's been taking all these different components of coaching and philosophies, and taking what's resonated with me and creating my own practice and artistry in life, and being in full expression that way. Yeah, Bruce Lee is a huge influence. He's part of my virtual mastermind group. He's at the forefront of that mastermind group for me.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We should do a deep dive into the Dragon then at
Yeah.
some point. Come back
Yes.
on and let's do a deep dive and go into everything.
What is your
That's
favorite Bruce Lee movie?
the Chinese Connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it always was. It's just, yeah, it's just something about the film, and I guess it's like a romance involved with him
Mm-hmm.
and the girl,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, I don't know, I just really loved the character that he plays in that particular film. I love all of his films. He wasn't able to do as many, his life was cut short, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
for the ones he did leave a very impactful legacy behind. And I really, yeah, so Chinese Connection definitely my personal favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. He
But
he was he definitely, well, he very special for me because he was the only Asian out there during the time when I was growing up that I could look up to and be, oh, there's someone that looks like me. He's I mean,
right,
obviously he's Chinese and I'm Filipino, but it's like Asian. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is great.
yeah, yeah, he's pretty handsome too.
Good looking guy. Good
Oh
looking
yeah,
guy for sure.
absolutely. It's been great. And how do you say goodbye or in closing in Tagalog? Is there something that I can learn today?
Ooh, now you're testing me here. I'm stateside Filipino, so um, you know, one of the things that we say is ingat, ingat,
Okay,
which is
Ingat.
ingat. Yeah, ingat, I believe is how it's spelled, and it's
Okay,
it's 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 basically, you know, a fare thee well,
okay,
a greeting that we say when we're um, when we're departing. I feel so bad. I should know the exact translation, but every time I'm with
That's
the
okay.
Filipino homies, it's like, oh, okay, ingat. It's like, take care.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
It's been great. And so we'll be back next time. Thank you so
Yes.
much for being with us.
And thank you, PT, for having me. This has been such a pleasure, and not just a pleasure in doing the podcast, but being able to reconnect with you. And yeah, you're so right. It's the like spirits have, no matter
Mm-hmm,
how long we haven't been in contact with each other, but there has
mm-hmm.
always been a connection, and it's something that I really do appreciate and cherish. And again, thanks for having me on your podcast. It really it was a lot of fun, and I hope your listeners got some value out of it.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. Thanks again. You rock, dude.
You rock. Thank you so much.
You were listening to Journaling with PT and my inspirational conversation with life coach Mark King. Thank you so much for joining us. All of his information is in the show notes. Follow the podcast, subscribe, share, like, all the things. Happy holidays. Please stay tuned. Until next time.